Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. Just got done with round three of the Big Ten tournament. That was our second day of four games in one day. Unfortunately, that's over now because we do not have as many teams. We'll have two games tomorrow. I believe the first one is at 1 o'clock, so super excited for that. But we have a lot to talk about from today. We're going to talk about each one of those games individually. We're going to talk about how both teams performed. We're going to talk about the future and kind of what that holds of the teams. And all these teams right now are tournament teams, so we're not oh, what happened to their season? Their season's over. This, that, and the other. They're all tournament teams at this point. So we'll talk a little bit about tournament. We'll talk about a little bit about how the Big Ten tournament continues for half of them, and then we also have some coaching stuff to get to. Fran McCaffrey fired at Iowa, and there is another coach who has been rumored to leave the Big Ten. I'm going to leave you in suspense for that one until we get to it. Finally, we'll cap it off as we normally do by looking at tomorrow's schedule and not do a full-on preview for those games, but maybe share some thoughts about each one and go from there. I am JR, your host on the Big Ten Huddle, Big Ten Basketball After Dark. Just me tonight, me on my own. If you're in the comment section or anything like that live, feel free to comment. I'm not able to pull up comments as well when I'm live on my own just because I'm not able to proofread some of them. But if I see your name and it seems like something is constructive to what we're talking about, if I recognize you, I'll probably bring your comment up because more often than not, adding comments to the shows helps when it's just me on my own. So we are going to get straight into it. We are going to talk about this Michigan and Purdue game. Michigan comes out on top over Purdue 86-68. Michigan led at halftime, and it was one that was rather interesting the way that they got there, right? I mean, Purdue was getting good shots, but they weren't making them, and even Matt Painter pointed that out that he wasn't upset with their shot selection by any means, but things could have been better still for them. Let's start with Michigan though. So Michigan wins the game. This was a huge win for Michigan in my mind. Michigan, they've been struggling to end the season, right? Nobody could say that they weren't. They were struggling there to end the season, but they get back in the right direction here. They did have some miscommunications on defense. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Purdue. I did feel like they had some miscommunications, but overall the offense was much better in this game. And I think it came from a lot of no hesitation, right? Now there was hesitation at times, but I felt like that was when the offense maybe didn't function as well and didn't go as well. But for Michigan, only 5 turnovers in this game. 5 turnovers overall for Michigan. I apologize. 6 turnovers overall in this game for Michigan. I think they had 5 when there were only 3 minutes left in the game, and by that time the game was completely over. There was no way Purdue was coming back at that time. So overall for Michigan to be able to come out and only have 6 turnovers against a team like Purdue, who Braden Smith, tends to get a good amount of steals and do some of those things. You didn't have some of those issues in this one. I don't even remember if Braden Smith had Jakari Harris had 3 steals. Braden Smith had none in this game. He didn't have a block, so kudos to Braden Smith on that. But this is a team in Purdue that has Braden Smith getting quite a few steals just about every game, and he wasn't able to do it in this one. So major props to Michigan there. And like I said, I felt like a lot of it was just when the offense didn't have hesitation, when the offense wasn't thinking too much. It was just kind of get the ball and go for Danny Wolf. When they thought about it, they would maybe take an ill-advised 3, maybe not an ill-advised, but a 3 they shouldn't have taken, or maybe they would make a cross-court pass or try to thread the needle of a pass that they shouldn't make. When this Michigan team was in rhythm and they were not hesitating and they were playing at their peak, pace-wise, that was when they were at their best. So kudos to Decime. They obviously worked on that before they came into the tournament. The day or two extra that they had of practice time and implementing maybe some new plays and stuff like that, probably not, but whatever they did to implement new things into the offense to help limit those turnovers, it was absolutely huge for them, and I think that definitely deserves to be recognized. And also, too, Roddy Gale in this game. Roddy Gale in this game, he had himself a pretty darn good game. In this one, he had where's the stats at? I'm missing him here. Yeah, so he didn't start. He had 11 points, 3 of 5 from the field. He had a 3-point. He shot a 3-pointer, didn't make it, but he was 5 for 6 from the free throw line. Getting to the free throw line, that's important for Roddy Gale to do that. 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 turnovers. That's the kind of game you want from Roddy Gale. Somebody who is going to be cutting to the basket quite a bit, which he was doing in this game. It was a great job by him, how much he was trying to get to the basket off the ball. And then also getting to the free throw line, being somebody that's going to make the other team have to foul him in order to stop him. And sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. 5 of 6 from the free throw line. That's a good one there. He had the second most. Or no, he tied for the most free throws made on the team. Vlad Golden was 5 for 7. So, I mean, and that's going to happen with Vlad Golden, right? He's going to get to the free throw line basically every single game. So, addition to that, at one point, Michigan was shooting over 35% from 3. I had it written down. That would have been the first time they were over 35% from 3 since January 27th. Unfortunately, they do not end that way. They end 8 of 26 from 3, so still not a great three-point shooting game, but Trey Donaldson did finish with 3 made three-pointers, 3 of 8 on the day. That is the first time that Trey Donaldson has made more than 2 three-pointers since January 27th, even though it wasn't the most efficient day in the world, right? You know, nobody's going to be bragging about 3 for 8 and say, oh, I have the best percentage in the world. It's good. But at the end of the day, he made those threes and was able to get that to a high enough number that it affected the game. And some of them were big three-pointers too that pushed that lead further away. They were three-pointers in big moments. They weren't just garbage time threes. And I think that was important for Trey Donaldson and what he did. So many big leads, or such a big lead in this game, and it didn't fall off for Michigan. That was the thing I was most impressed by for them. They have gotten out to these big leads at times, and then they let the other team get back into the game. They did not let that happen in this one, and that was impressive to me. Purdue tried to. Purdue did get some shots that looked like they could have gone in, but overall, it wasn't able to happen for Purdue, and this could be a turning point for this Michigan team. This Michigan team who was once leading the Big Ten, had a bad end of the season. They finished, what was their seed? 3rd, I think it was. So, not a bad seed, but still not first like you were at one point. They end the season, maybe not on the best note, and now they come into the Big Ten tournament, take down Purdue, who has won the Big Ten the past 2 years, and it's a good win for them. Good for them. Dusty May got his guys rolling, and I think the future of Michigan looks pretty good right now. So let's move on to what was the other one? Yeah, Purdue. Why did I question that one? Purdue. Okay, so TKR. He had some uncharacteristic misses in this game. I think Golden's size seemed to really impact him, similar to how Avicic's size did him in that Illinois game. Trey Coffin-Red, I mean, he's not a small guy, but he's not a 5, right? Like, he's not Zach Edey out there or anything like that. And so when he gets the matchups of, Tomislav Avicic or Vlad Golden, who are 7 or 7-1, that's a really, really tough matchup for them, not just because of their height, but also because of their weight and how hard they are to push around there in the post. And Trey Coffin-Ren has a lot of good footwork to mess around with, but at the end of the day, it's just it's not enough against some of these bigger guys that he can't really get around. It can sometimes outmuscle him a little bit because, like I said, they're just playing bigger than him. It's not that TKR is weak or anything like that. They're just playing bigger than him. So the lack of another scorer down there really impacted TKR. And I don't want to make it sound like he didn't have a good day or anything. Like, he had 24 points in this game, but he was 9 for 24 from the field. I felt like he probably could have been 12 for 24. There were some shots that I felt like those were normally shots he made. And so for TKR, just uncharacteristic misses. And overall, like, that's kind of the story of the game for Purdue in this one. In the second half, they were getting some wide open looks, but they were just missing them, and it was perplexing at times. And finally, after I think it was 3 short three-pointers in a row, like, they got some offensive rebounds. Purdue in this one had 14 offensive rebounds, more offensive rebounds than Michigan. I think they had 3 short three-pointers in a row. Now, they were talking a little bit on the broadcast about it a little bit, but I didn't think they talked about it enough. Like this Purdue team in the second half, especially, just looked exhausted. I mean, so many short shots. TKR, he had 0 field goals in the final 15 minutes of the game, they said, which is absolutely crazy. The final 15 minutes, Trey doesn't have a single field goal. I feel like I need to go check that, but that's what they said. I mean, he did have 11 points in the second half, so I don't know how accurate that one is, but that's what they said. 0 field goals in the final 15 minutes of the game for TKR. Even if he had 1 or 2, like that's just not enough for him. He has to be more productive than that, and that's kind of the hard part with TKR and Braden Smith right now is when you say, oh, only 2 field goals in the final 15 minutes, that's not good enough. You're going to have games like that. You have to have somebody pick it up. You have to have somebody else, pick it up for you. Caleb First in this one has 4 points. Okay, that's fine, but you need more from your fellow big man down there. CJ Cox started the game. He had 0 points in this one. He was 0 for 3 from the field. Now, I will give Cam Heide credit. He only had 3 points. And 2 fouls, but he was, tipping a lot of rebounds out there and helping get the offensive rebounds. And so I do think, the stat sheet doesn't really tell his impact he had in some areas, but you need more from those guys. It's what we've talked about all year long. And I think that the exhaustion is starting to catch up to him. Now, maybe this is good for Purdue that they went out in the Big Ten tournament this early. Maybe they went out this early, they get a little bit more rested before the NCAA tournament. And if I'm a Purdue fan, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, yeah, we lost. It's all good though because we're getting our guys a little bit more rested. Yeah, sure, they're gonna have to play 2 games in 2 or 3 days most likely, but it's not back to back to back like it would be in the Big Ten tournament. Our guys are gonna be more rested, and that's really what it was to me. I mean, this was Braden Smith's. He came out in the last minute of the game, but if this game was close, this would have been Braden Smith's 3rd straight game of 40 minutes played. That is just absolutely incredible. He's in the 99th percentile according to CBB Analytics for minutes played per game. TKR is in the 91st percentile of minutes per game played. I guess my biggest thing, and I'll end on this, and then we'll move on from Purdue. My biggest thing is I hope Matt Painter doesn't come to the post-game press conference again and talk about how his guys didn't execute, right? He can talk about missed shots and stuff like that. I think that's valid. But to say, oh, our guys didn't execute, our guys knew the game plan and they didn't do it. He kind of did that a little bit, not terribly. It didn't like get press talking about it or anything because he didn't do it in such a way that was demeaning toward them. But I just hope he doesn't do that. I hope Matt Painter sees the exhaustion that his guys are going through right now, and he implements something new into the offense. I ranked Jakari Harris as somebody, as a freshman who was going to be impactful down the stretch in the Big Ten because I felt like Jakari Harris was that guy who could relieve Braden Smith for 2 or 3 minutes in the game just to give him a little bit of extra rest. Matt Painter does that thing where he takes TKR out right before the media timeout, so that gets him a little bit of extra rest. I was hoping maybe we would see Matt Painter do that a little bit with Braden Smith just to get him a little bit of extra rest and have Jakari Harris run the point, be the ball handler for this team. But it doesn't happen because Braden Smith is so needed for this team. He's one of the best players in the country. And when you have one of the best players in the country and you don't quite have the supporting cast and you have one of the best bigs in the country, one of the best scoring bigs in the country, you're going to have a hard time trying to get that guy off the floor and trust somebody else. So those are my thoughts on Purdue. I think future looking forward, it's good that they have the rest that they have. It's going to be interesting to see how things go for them. But overall, if you're a Purdue fan, you hate the loss, but you're also like, okay, get these guys rested because those legs were tired out there. That was that was a tough one. So, and of course, our Indiana fan John in the chat. That's why Purdue's initials are PU because holy mother, they stunk. Yeah, I think it was more just tired than anything. I mean, you looked out there and you saw the way they were playing. They looked exhausted. I mean, just every single time down there on the court. And it wasn't just Braden Smith and TKR. Other guys looked tired too. And to me, it's kind of like, why are you tired? Like, you guys aren't playing as much as those guys are. But I don't know, like, maybe they're mentally exhausted. I have no idea. But credit to them. They still played hard in the first half. They were in it. Just Michigan pulled away in the second half because we saw a corrected Michigan team going up against a inexhausted Illinois team, or Indiana Purdue team. I got eye on the brain because next game we're talking about is Maryland 88, Illinois 65. I don't see Philip in the chat tonight. Philip, if you're there, feel free to let us know your thoughts on this game. But this was a tough one for Illinois after Illinois just kind of bombarded Iowa in their last game, scoring a bunch. That didn't happen in this one because Maryland bombarded Illinois in this one, and they had a really, really, really tough time. So the overall, I don't want to say effort. It's not effort with Illinois. It's exactly what I said after the Purdue game. They can shoot themselves out of a game. They can shoot themselves right back into a game. Well, when the other team is shooting themselves through a game, you can't shoot yourself back into a game. To me, it didn't matter if Illinois started going 6 for 8 down the stretch in this game because Maryland was just hitting so many shots and Maryland was getting such good defense from their bench. Jordan Geronimo came in this game and did a fantastic job playing defense. We've given Maryland's bench crap, right? We've given Maryland's bench crap. But and Kevin Willard said after the game, you look at the numbers and they're actually better when the bench is in there. I've not seen those numbers. I pay for CBB analytics, and I don't see those numbers. So maybe he can point me in the direction of where those numbers are. I don't know exactly where they are, but defensively this game, they did get a boost when their bench came in there. Jordan Geronimo specifically did a phenomenal job for them, and the defensive start was really, really good for them too. Both teams kind of started out a little bit slow, but overall, I didn't think it was because either team was like bad offensively. I felt like it was more just good defense being played. And it gave me some hope for Illinois, like, oh, okay, we're seeing some good defense here. But then that quickly faded. We'll stay on Maryland to start, but Maryland in this one, Chris says Maryland shot 3 better than overall field goal. Yeah. I mean, Maryland in this one, you look at the shooting overall, 42% from the field, 30 for 71. Illinois was 37% from the field, 23 for 63. And then Maryland from 3 was nearly 50%, 11 for 23. Illinois was 6 for 27. I mean, that's kind of the story right there. When you add in that much better shooting with only 3 turnovers for Maryland and 17 for Illinois, yikes, 17 turnovers for Illinois. Illinois could just never get comfortable and try to do anything. I mean, that's just the moral of the story right there. When you're shooting that well, and yeah, I see you, Chris. I'll get to Rodney Rice in a second because that dude had a day. Rodney Rice, we'll talk about him in a second. But overall, like when you look at the turnovers like that, you look at the way the other team is shooting, like Illinois did get nearly 50 rebounds in this game. They had 16 offensive rebounds. But when you're turning the ball over that much, I mean, they had more turnovers than they had offensive rebounds, which is kind of crazy when you have 16 offensive rebounds. But, it is what it is. Now, on to Rodney Rice, because Chris is bringing him up. He says, Rodney Rice should have at least been an all Big Ten honorable mention. Totally. Rodney Rice not being third team, I don't even think honorable mention. Him not being third team was ridiculous to me. Rodney Rice, and that's kind of what you got from Maryland this year, right? Like the Crab Five has been so good, and Derek Queen has got a lot of credit for it. And I'm not saying Derek Queen shouldn't get credit for it. Derek Queen is fantastic. He was running the break at one point in this game. Like he does a lot of things really, really well, and he's a big piece for this team. Julian Reese should have been all defensive team, and Rodney Rice should have been at least all Big Ten third team. I mean, Bruce Thornton, I love me some Bruce Thornton. I'm an Ohio State fan, so don't get me wrong. But Bruce Thornton should have been probably third team, and Rodney Rice probably should have been second team. I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but just the fact that he didn't get the recognition for it, and I just thought this season, Rodney Rice, he didn't have the usage rate. He didn't have the impact on the team that a Bruce Thornton did, so obviously that plays into it just because Rodney Rice has so many guys around him, but overall, I mean, he's had a really, really good season, and he's done a good job playing within the system. And Kevin Willard has done a good job too. We gave Kevin Willard some crap last season and in the beginning this season a little bit, but Kevin Willard's really figured things out. He's gone to kind of a short bench, and he went to a longer bench in this one because they were winning by so much, but he's gone kind of to a short bench in this game. But Rodney Rice, 7 3-pointers in 25 minutes. I mean, absolutely outstanding. Derek Queen gets 10 rebounds in 23 minutes. Like, again, you're shooting this well. No, not many teams out there are going to be able to beat you, especially when you're only turning the ball over 3 times. So Rodney Rice in this game, he was absolutely fantastic. He deserved more credit this year for what he was able to do. I mean, he had some cramping with his calf, I think, at one point. I was a little concerned about that, and I think after he hit that three off the cramping, I don't think he went back in the game, or if he did, it was very minimal after that, which I think was a very good move by Kevin Willard. I think the temptation would have been to try and get him that 8-3 to tie with Peyton Sandford. I think that was the record for the Big Ten tournament, to tie with him. But Kevin Willard, he's looking at the big picture, and I don't think Rodney Rice has any problem with that. He's looking at the big picture as well. And I praise the bench strength already. Jordan Geronimo coming in there, playing the defense that he played. Deshaun Harris-Smith didn't really impact the game with his shooting. He still struggles, 0 for 4, 0 for 1 from the three-point line, but he did add 4 rebounds for you. He did get 2 assists, so you're seeing some better stuff there. I really think, and me and Kent brought it up at one point, I really think not just the improvement on the court from Julian Reese. We've always known he's been a great defender, right? We've always known that. But his improvement on the court and his improvement as a leader of this team. The more I look for it, the more I see Julian Reese talking to guys, being in the huddle, doing things. Like, he is a leader on this team, and I think that is something that Kevin Willard wanted to get done in the offseason, definitely got it done, and that's been huge this year for Maryland. So Maryland going to keep rolling in my mind. I mean, Maryland is a really, really good team, and if you can continue to get bench production from them, especially on defense, if anything, just for on defense, that's gonna be huge for them. So Chris said Rice can be on a wheelchair in a game and still hit a bunch of threes. Yeah, man, he popped up from that calf cramp, hit that three, got fouled on it. I mean, that was just like one of those plays that was like, oh, okay, so it's this kind of night for Rodney Rice, huh? Like, and that's not to say that he was lucky or anything like that. It's just like he was that locked in, he was that ready to play for a team where you talk about, not for a team, teams coming into the game. Maybe this is their first game. Maybe they don't shoot as well and stuff like that. That's not been the case, right? This was Maryland's first game of the tournament. They came in. They were hot. They were shooting, and they did a fantastic job. So all the credit in the world to Maryland. If I had to pick a Big Ten tournament winner at this point, my pick is Maryland. My pick is Maryland because of the defense, because of the Crab Five, because of Derek Queen and what he does, and because of these guards, man. These guards, like, we give Michigan State a lot of credit for their guards, and they deserve it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to compare the two and say one's better than the other, but I'm just saying, like, Maryland has some fantastic guards as well. Gillespie, Rice, Miguel normally hits a lot more three-pointers. He was 0 for 4 from 3 in this one, but you didn't even really notice it because you had Rodney Rice hitting him. Gillespie went 2 for 5 in this one from 3. So overall, like, Maryland, they are so good. They are so good. Chris says, Reese is an introvert person a lot, though. I live in the same apartment as him, and the guy is like a big teddy bear wherever I met him. Yeah, they were talking about that in a previous game this year where he's kind of an introvert and, maybe has a little bit of a struggle being a leader because of that. But, I mean, I tell you, I've known some really good leaders in sports. Growing up playing and coaching, like, there are some really good leaders who are introverts, and it's just because when they do speak, you have to listen, right? And maybe Julian Reese is kind of pulling that a little bit here, where, like, maybe he's not the most vocal guy in the locker room, maybe he's not the most vocal guy in the huddle, but when he speaks, guys are listening. And I would venture to say he's probably got a really good relationship with Derek Queen, helping Derek Queen out, maybe getting in the gym with him a little bit extra during the season, stuff like that. I mean, I can't praise Julian Reese enough. I can't praise this Maryland team enough. Now on to the other side, Illinois. Here come the haters on social media. That's all I have to say, because Illinois, when they have highs, and people give them their praise. But when they have lows, and people let them know about their lows. I mean, when you have the amount of turnovers that you had, you shoot 30, and 30% shooting, like, that just absolutely kills the team. 37% shooting on the day, 22% from 3. Illinois they can just not recover from a high turnover rate and bad 3-point shooting. Michigan is a team that can, because Michigan can do a lot of different things that help them out, or they're willing to do a lot of different things. Illinois, they don't hit threes, they just keep shooting them. They just keep firing away because they think we hopefully are going to start making some of these eventually. And I think in this game it wasn't so much of a bad idea to do that. 27 3-point shots in this one, but still, like, at some point you have to move away from it. I will say though, Maryland's defense did a really good job taking away some of those cutting angles that Illinois has really excelled with, and I thought that was a huge thing for them. Kasparis Chakonis, I am a little concerned about him. 6 turnovers in this game. He had 6 turnovers last game. You could kind of excuse it because of how well the team played overall, but you can't excuse 6 turnovers in a game, back-to-back games. What I saw in this one from him that really led to so many turnovers was when he was trying to dribble into traffic and it just wasn't working out for him. Felt like Maryland was physical with him in some ways, which you would think like he'd be able to withstand that. The dude's 6'6", but I think that, you know, some of the physicality that he got from the Maryland guards, he might not have always been used to. So when he was dribbling in traffic and when he was trying to dribble around guys through traffic, it just never really worked out for him, and that's where a lot of those turnovers came from. Felt like KJ was pressing in this game. Felt like it at some points he was pressing. He wasn't really getting to exactly what he wanted to get to, the spots he wanted to get to, and felt like at some points he didn't trust his teammates, which, man, when my teammates shoot, you know, Kasparis was 1 for 3 on this one. When my teammates shoot 5 for 24 in the game, can be hard for me to trust him too. So I think they need to find a way to get, you know, KJ to trust the guys on his team, even when things aren't going well. I mean, you know, they're gonna go into a win or be done scenario coming up. So it's hard to, you know, correct all that much, but they got to find a way to not only get him to be more confident in the guys with him, but I talked about this with Locked On Illini, like, be more confident in himself as well. It looks like when he gets down on his teammates, he starts making mistakes and he starts getting down on himself, and that's really, really hard for him. So there were points in the season where that was happening and he wasn't getting down on himself, but it looks like it started to happen lately. So and then the other piece of this, Illinois, I don't know what happened to the defense I once knew and loved for this Illinois team, but it is not there. It is not there. All the credit in the world to Maryland for what they did offensively. But this Illinois team, they lack awareness. They lack connection. This was worse than the Duke game in some ways, in my mind. Some of the defense that you saw out there. Kylan Boswell is doing his best to guard the best guy on the team, but when you're Maryland, you have so many good guards, you just go to the other dude, right? You just find somebody else, and you're cutting, you're finding open lanes. There was a time when Jordan Geronimo ran the entire floor. Nobody picked him up on, you know, wasn't even a fast break. Illinois had probably 3 or 4 guys back, and Jordan Geronimo just runs up the middle of the court right into the lane, gets the pass, dunks it, and it's like, what in the world are we doing here? So lack of awareness, lack of connection. You know, some people are going to call that poor coaching. I don't know if you can completely put it on the coaching. I've seen Illinois play some really good defense at times this season, so I find it hard to believe that the coaching just throughout the season got terrible on defense. But for whatever reason in this game, they just looked lost, and probably more credit needs to be given to Maryland for that. But Illinois, that is something they have got to fix, because right now this Illinois team, they better pray they are not a 7 or an 8 seed. If they are a 7 or an 8 seed, if they win their first round game, they're going to be facing a 1 or 2 seed in the next one, and that's just bad news for them. I think their floor is the 7 seed. Maybe the tournament does something crazy and puts them in an 8 seed. I don't think I could see that happen. So maybe you get the right 2 seed, but it would benefit them to find a team in the tournament, and that's why I think a 6 seed would be really good for them, because they could find a team like that in the first round and then possibly get a little bit hot, go into the second round. But they need to find a team that's a little bit less physical. This is a young Illinois team, and Illinois fans know this, and Illinois fans know the ceiling is really high. But just when you're playing talent for talent against another team, and it's not always talent for talent, because Illinois is a really talented team, but when you're playing another talented team, when they're physical with Illinois, Illinois doesn't wilt, but Illinois has a hard time responding to that because of their youth. And they have some guys who do a good job, but Other times, like I said with KJ, trying to dribble through guys just doesn't always work out for him. So tough stuff there. Those are my thoughts on Illinois. Oh, the future of Maryland. I forgot to mention this for Maryland. The ball movement and the 3-pointers together. That is what makes this offense run more than anything. The three games where Maryland shot their worst percent from three this season were all three losses. Those just so happen to also coincide with 3 of their 5 worst assist games on the season. Maryland getting 30 shots made, having 19 assists. That is no accident, right? When you are Maryland and you get good ball movement, you are getting better shots. You are not forcing things. It is much, much better for this team. So Kevin Willard, continue to work on that. Continue to work on good ball movement. And like I said, I like Maryland's chances as they continue to go. So John says, remember Brad Underwood said they couldn't guard a middle schooler before the year started. They did. He did. And that's like, that was a crazy thing because their defensive rating and defensive efficiency was really, really good in non-conference play. And then they got into conference play and it just kind of tanked from there. So tough for them. They're going to need to hit a bunch of 3-pointers. They are a really dangerous team in the NCAA tournament. The thing I see that lacks for them though is I don't like if their 3-pointers aren't there. I don't think they can win a game just with rebounding alone, unfortunately, for them, right? Maybe they can. They get the right matchup. Maybe they can. But I think in the NCAA tournament, you're going to see too many good teams. Watch out if this Illinois team is a 7 seed and they're going up against, the wrong matchup as a 2 seed. I mean, it could be another game where they get blown out. And that sucks. I hate saying that, Illinois fans, but with what I've watched lately, you face the right 2 seed, that could happen to you. So, all right, let's move on to our Michigan State and Oregon game. Oh, yeah, there we go. Out of position there. All right, Michigan State and Oregon. So this was an interesting game. Michigan State in this one, really, really good defense I saw from them. When you see Oregon, you think of good defense from Oregon overall. I don't think there's any secret there. They had 2 players on the all defensive team. Seemed like a little much for me. I did think that Bamba deserves some recognition. I don't know if I would have put him on the team. I probably would have put Leal on the all defensive team over Bamba, but I'm not gonna cry about it or anything. Nate Biddle, he deserved his spot there. He had a good game, 22 points, 11 rebounds, had the double-double, 33 minutes played for him. But Michigan State, I mean, their defense overall just suffocating for this Oregon team at times. Held Jackson Shellstad 8 points, 4 of 11 shooting on the day, 0 for 5 shooting overall. TJ Bamba, he had 5 turnovers this game. Nate Biddle had 4 turnovers himself. So just strong defensive play by Michigan State all throughout the game, especially in the first half. Oregon shot 56% from the first half, and that's kind of what kept them within bay. Michigan State went on, I think it was an 11-2 run there to end the first half, and that was huge for them to start to pull away because Oregon was right there with them. Like I said, shooting 56% there in the first half for Michigan State to be able to get that lead, which Oregon did respond to in the second half and had their own 11-2 run. But you're not going to continue to shoot that well when the other team is playing good defense. And sometimes I think we don't always realize that. Like sometimes I don't think we always realize that, like, oh, this team is shooting really, really well. Well, the other team's still playing good defense. So, like, you're not going to keep shooting that well the entire game. It's not how it happens. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't normally happen like that. Offense was pretty good. I didn't feel like the offense was anything spectacular, but I didn't think the offense was bad. Turnovers, they had some missed opportunities with their free throws that Tom Izzo pointed out in his press conference, and obviously that was right. 13 turnovers or 12 turnovers, I apologize, in the game. 17 of 29 free throw percent. Need to be better than that. Interesting nugget about Michigan State. Prior to this game, Michigan State was 2-2 versus teams that they shot less than 65% against with free throws. The difference with those games is that all 4 of those games they shot less than 20 free throws. This game, they shot 59%, but they had 29 free throw attempts. So Michigan State getting to the basket, getting fouled, it's huge for them. The rebounding, I mean, that's one of the things with this team that has changed so much, right? The front court last year wasn't good enough, but now you have Jackson Kohler taking the step he took. He only had 4 rebounds in this game, but it was just rebounding all together. 5 rebounds for Carson Cooper. Multiple guys had 3. Cohen Carr, though, was the biggest rebounder in this one. 8 rebounds. There was one point where Nate Biddle looked like he had the ball coming directly for him, and he was reaching up to grab it, and Cohen Carr just skied up and took that ball right away from Nate Biddle. And I mean, like, that's the kind of stuff that this Michigan State team does that I don't see from every other team. Not any team. There's other teams out there that do it, but that's the biggest thing I see from this Michigan State team is the effort plays like that and being able to overcome guys, I mean, who are 7 foot, 7'1". I forget exactly how tall Nate Biddle is. And for Cohen Carr to be able to use his athleticism to get up there, tear that rebound away from Nate Biddle, it was absolutely huge. And I feel like I say it every single time after a win, but I'm going to say it again. Jace Richardson. Jace Richardson is a dog. Jace Richardson does a fantastic job. He has really adapted to this alpha role for this team. The thing that I noticed Jace Richardson started doing in this game is he started taking shots he hasn't normally been taking, because I think Jace Richardson sees this alpha role. I don't know if Tom Izzo had a conversation with him before the tournament or what it was, but Jace Richardson knows he is the dog of this team on offense. He knows he is the alpha, and he's out there hunting his shots, getting what he wants to get. Now, he was only 4 for 13 this game. It's not like he had anything spectacular, but 3 for 7 from 3 in this one. You've not seen that. You've not seen Jace Richardson take 7 3-pointers in a game too many times, but he realizes that when he shoots the ball well, it really helps this team. One of the only guys that's shooting around 40%. I think Jeremy Fears is still up there around 40% as well, about less than 40%, but he just doesn't take the same kind of volume of shots that Jace Richardson does. And that's the thing with Jace Richardson. He can take a higher volume and remain with that percentage. He's not at that percentage because he takes a low volume. Jeremy Fears Jr., 1 3-point shot in this game. He didn't make it, but that's what I'm talking about, right? The volume, the alpha mentality that I'm going to go out there, I'm going to hunt my shot, and I'm going to get it. All right, on the other side of it, Oregon. Let's see if you guys have any comments. Nope, no comments on that. All right, Oregon in this one, they made some key defensive mistakes. They had some poor rebounding in the first half. They kind of shot their way out of the poor rebounding. The rebounding overall in the first half, Michigan State had 18 rebounds. Oregon only had 9 rebounds, 0 offensive rebounds. Michigan State had 7 offensive rebounds. They had almost as many offensive rebounds in the first half to Oregon overall. And that's going to be really important for this Oregon team. This Oregon team has got to rebound if they want to win games. They are 3-7 with 32 or less rebounds on the year. Those games they did not win were against Penn State, Oregon State, and Maryland. Now, Maryland, that's a good win when you don't rebound that much, but that's the anomaly, right? They lost to other good teams because they didn't rebound that much. They beat Penn State, they beat Oregon State. Those are teams you should still beat. You have the better players in them, but none of those games were by more than 4 points. And I have to believe that the low rebounding totals attributed to part of that. I don't remember all of those games super in depth. I remember them somewhat enough to say that was a good evaluation, but overall, like, they have to be better than that. Missed opportunities. They were within 1 point in the second half, I remember, but they took a quick contested shot, and Michigan State took advantage of it. They went down the other end, got it real fast, and that led to, I think, a 13-point run on the other end. And Oregon, they could just never recover, right? And that's what I was concerned about this Oregon team. In the second half, Michigan State was going to challenge with a run at some point. And would Oregon have the legs? Would Oregon have the dudes to be able to challenge with it? Unfortunately for them, they did not. Rebounding, and Jackson Shelstad, he's got to be better. He can't go 0 for 5 from three in one of these big games. Just can't happen. Overall, 4 for 19 from three in this one, 21% for Oregon. If you're not going to rebound, you're going to have to be able to hit shots, and Oregon wasn't able to do that in this one. All right, next we will get to UCLA in Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they came out, they were hunting for their shot, and they got their shot in this one, 86-70 over UCLA. Just a fantastic game shooting for Wisconsin. For me, like this is an example of why I feel like Wisconsin has Final Four caliber, right? I got some pushback on that when I said that during the Power Ranking show, and I figured I would because their defense has been nitpicked this year. But their defensive numbers have been going up as the season progressed, as the season went on. You saw them not shoot as well against Northwestern. They still were able to score 70, but a lot of that was because of really stingy, really good defense on Northwestern. Now, that's Northwestern. This is UCLA, still not the most offensive-minded team in the world, right? But UCLA, they had to take 33 pointers in this game because Wisconsin was not giving them anything down low. Now, UCLA, they have their own issues to deal with. We'll talk about them in a second. But the three-point success of Wisconsin, the forcing three-pointers of UCLA, their defensive strengths, going up against that, 22 assists on 30 overall buckets. That is absolutely huge for Wisconsin. Wisconsin's in a similar boat there with Maryland, where you get the ball movement, you get the good three-point shooting. That is where those two things coincide. Excuse me. UCLA, they did try to surge at one point. I think in the second half they had a run of like 7-0 or something like that. Wisconsin was up 48-29 to begin the second half, so UCLA did try to make a little bit of a surge there, but overall, Wisconsin adjusted to the pressure. They were getting into the bonus early because they were getting themselves to the free throw line and they were drawing fouls, and they really were able to stop the dribble penetration of UCLA that they were trying to get, and that's what caused UCLA to take all these three-pointers that really, in reality, they shouldn't have been taking, not because they're bad at taking three-pointers. Like, they've done a pretty good job of hitting three-pointers this season. It's not been anything spectacular. I forget exactly what the percent is, but it's not been anything spectacular. But when you force them to shoot three-pointers, it's not an elected decision by them. When you force them to shoot those three-pointers, it's like that Nebraska game where UCLA just couldn't hit anything because Nebraska kept forcing them to take them, and they ultimately lost that Nebraska game. I do remember that one. I did think it was interesting in the press conference. I think it was Kamari McGee, maybe it was Great Guard. I don't know. One of them started talking about it. The other one then went on with it. It was probably Kamari McGee that started talking about it, and Great Guard went on about it. They talked about how they had a lot of takeaways from that Michigan State game that they played. The physicality, the rebounding, the attacking the paint, everything that they were doing in that game. Wisconsin just kind of took that and said, we're going to start doing that better than we have, which is interesting because Wisconsin is so much more of a shooting team than Michigan State is, but for them to be able to take that into account, really challenge themselves with that, I can see that from this Wisconsin team. From that Michigan State game, there seems to have been a switch flipped a little bit. Now, obviously, the anomaly is that Penn State game. Penn State shot so well in that game. Yes, Wisconsin, needs to be questioned for that. But overall, what are you going to do? Penn State shot over 50% from three in that one. And a lot of those were contested threes. It's not like Wisconsin was just leaving those dudes wide open. They were just hitting their shots. Sometimes that happens. Just thankfully it didn't happen in the NCAA tournament to them. But Wisconsin is a team who has that ability to have good defense on them and still hit their shots. And that's what makes them so dangerous. Now, I think Wisconsin's weakness will be if they face a more athletic team defensively than UCLA. UCLA, very good defensive team, but they don't have these big, huge athletes that can just cover the court like crazy. Wisconsin's weakness will probably be if they face a team like that in the NCAA tournament. So if I'm Wisconsin, I am wanting nothing to do with super athletic defensive-minded teams. I'm wanting teams that I can get in shooting matches with. I'm wanting teams that are, kind of smaller guards, stuff like that. That's what I want against other teams. And if they do have bigger guards, I want slow, bigger guards. You can be a bigger guard, but if you're slow, I'm going to let my guys, Kamari McGee, John Blackwell, John Janicki to a certain extent, I'm going to let those guys get around you and really efficiently have our offense be moving that way. So we'll see. It's the luck of the draw, but at the end of the day, if you're Wisconsin, you're really, really confident in this 3-point shooting you have, and you're really confident in the defense that you possess that's been getting better as well. All right, now to the other side with UCLA. Flat start for them. Wisconsin, I think, attributed to that. Wisconsin did a really good job of disrupting UCLA in their offense, but UCLA never did that to Wisconsin. There were points in the game where UCLA just like they just their defense just reacted the entire time. They never attacked. It felt like, and for UCLA, like that's not something I've seen out of Mick Cronin teams a ton. But unfortunately for them, that's what did happen in this game. They were the reactors. They were not the attackers, and that really affected them. They did lack execution on the offensive end. Like I said, Wisconsin played good defense, but overall, they had to get to the paint better. They had to create better shots for themselves. They had to create better shots for other guys. I do think a big issue with that was the physicality of Wisconsin down low. Steven Crowl, Nolan Winter, like those guys were just more physical down low than the other guys were. And that's a huge reason why I think UCLA just kind of stayed outside the three-point arc and shot threes, 33s in this game. They shot 68 shots overall. Nearly half of their shots were three-pointers. That's not a winning percentage for UCLA. Now, they hit 9 of them. They shot 30% from 3, but still, that's not a winning percentage for UCLA. They have to be better than that. For the future, I feel like I've talked about this so many times, and I think UCLA fans agree with me, so I'm not concerned about that. I wouldn't say this to Mick Cronin because he is smarter than me, but I also question, like, what are you doing out there? Adai Mara, he is averaging 12.7 minutes per game this season. When he plays over 12.7 minutes, so 13 minutes or more, this team is 14-1. And you can say, oh, well, it's just because they out of conference and they played easy teams. No, they're 9-1 in the Big Ten when they play a Daimara 13 minutes or more. The one loss they have was he only played 14 minutes against Minnesota. So, if you say more than 14 minutes, I think they're like 7-1 or something like that in the Big Ten in like 12-0 or something like that. I don't remember exactly how those numbers work, but I know how numbers work, but how those numbers work out there. But like, if you're Mick Cronin, you have got to get more touches. You have got to get more minutes to Adai Mara. Like you do not have the front court without him in there, and it's something that he has to do a better job, and he has to do a better job of getting to. So, all right, we're going to hit a commercial really fast, then we'll come back. We will talk about Fran, the mystery coach, and then we'll look at the rest of the bracket. So stick with us. We'll be right back. CBB Analytics isn't just another stat site. It's your ultimate destination for in-depth college basketball analysis used by fans and even the coaches. It has comprehensive stats for men's and women's basketball across Division 1 through 3, dating all the way back to 2018. From shooting percentage to game recap, CBB Analytics has it all. Try CBB Analytics for free or pay for a tier to take your basketball knowledge to the next level. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, we appreciate you being here. Please do like, subscribe. If you're on podcast, give us a 5-star rating. Helps us out. Some podcast platforms you can comment on as well. So on YouTube, wherever you are, please do comment. That helps out the show, helps more people figure out about the show. Really, really appreciate it. And also, if you are so interested in CBB Analytics, make sure you use use code HUDDLE, HUDDLE. Don't cuddle. Use the word HUDDLE, HUDDLE, for $30 off your first purchase there. That is code HUDDLE, HUDDLE, at cbbanalytics.com. All right, Fran McCaffrey has been fired at Iowa. This is something that we talked about on the last show. Could possibly happen. The referee told Casual Big Ten Kent that he was getting fired. We talked about the possibility of maybe he just steps down, maybe he comes to an agreement with them. But the truth is, like, he had a buyout of like $4 million. That wasn't going to happen. Maybe they could have made an agreement to still pay him something, but he steps down. But sounds like Fran, he's too proud of a guy, and he doesn't want, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. Some people say that, they mean it in a bad way. I'm not meaning it in a bad way at all. Like, I would not be surprised if Fran takes a job someplace else after this. Like, Fran is adamant that he wants to keep coaching. Now, he gets into the offseason, maybe he talks to his family a little bit more. I tend to believe, man, just go to Indiana. Like you got your son playing, coaching at Butler, I think it was. I think he was on the Fever coaching staff there for a while as well. You got your son playing over at Butler. Like, man, just go over there and enjoy your time. Go watch Caitlin Clark. Like, go enjoy your time over there. But at the end of the day, Fran McCaffrey is fired. I think it does shock some people, but I'm going to go through some reasons why. I think this was the right decision, and I said that. I also didn't think it would be a bad decision to keep him, but I also see where Iowa fans are coming from. It stinks. Obviously, Connor McCaffrey, he put some clown faces on Twitter today. I think those were in reference to the Iowa administration for letting Fran McCaffrey go. But here's some reasonings. This season was a disappointment. Even before Owen Freeman was injured, the team was not as good as maybe Iowa fans would have thought. They were not as good as I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be a top half of the Big Ten team. I thought, with the talent they had and bringing in Drew Thelwell and some of the things they were able to do, I thought they would end up being there. So I actually had them as like my most surprising team because everybody picked them to be so low in the conference. But obviously that didn't happen. They did win a game in the Big Ten tournament, but that wasn't enough. Fans have some apathy toward the program right now. Some really low attendance numbers. Attendance hasn't been this low since like the 60s for them, so that's been disheartening from the fan base. And honestly, like at the end of the day, like there are some fans that say, "Well, he shouldn't have been fired. We wanted him." I mean, I know it stinks, but like the reasoning is the reasoning. Like go to games if you want to support the coach and support the team. Like you got to go to games. And I realize that that can't just be one person, but you got to get other people there. So he never went to the Sweet 16. He lacked deep tournament runs. And for a guy that had All-Americans, Luka Garza was a Naismith Award winner, I do believe, or at least he was a finalist, one of the two. And, with all that, you never make it to the Sweet 16 in your career. Like it's clear this program is kind of at a stopping point where they need to take the next step. And Fran McCaffrey doesn't seem to be not able, but doesn't seem to be willing to have the defensive emphasis to take them to that next step. And also the other issue here is that in the NIL landscape, Fran McCaffrey is not the, NIL raiser that maybe some other younger coaches would be. And that's the part of it that I didn't realize as much beforehand, but now, after hearing some other people talk about it and reading some more material, I'm realizing Iowa does have an issue with, NIL resources. There is a very real chance that Iowa will lose Owen Freeman and Josh Dix to other Big Ten teams this offseason. Other Big Ten teams want those two players, and other Big Ten teams are willing to pay those two players big money. Iowa, as much as those players I'm sure do love Iowa, like Iowa can't come in and offer, $200,000 to Owen Freeman, because if you offer that, some team's going to come in and offer $7,500,000 instead. Like somebody's going to come in and offer Owen Freeman at least $750,000. If you can't even get to $250,000, like it doesn't matter how much Owen Freeman loves, and these aren't exact numbers I'm throwing out. I'm just kind of throwing out numbers here, but like I don't want to put a guy's NIL out there. So I probably shouldn't have said those numbers. I apologize. But you get what I'm saying. Like Owen Freeman, he as much as he loves Iowa, he can't deny that he can make more money elsewhere if Iowa is not going to pay him. Same thing with Josh Dix. So they got to bring in somebody who can raise more NIL funds. Fran McCaffrey should be praised. He should be honored. Fans should remember him well. And he should, obviously he can do whatever he wants, but I think he should look back at his time in Iowa and say, this program would not be where they are now if it was not for me. And whatever heights this program gets to, Fran McCaffrey should know they weren't going to get to those heights without what I did there. And he should be happy about that. He should be prideful in that, to know that, or take pride, maybe not be prideful, but take pride in that he was able to build the program up to that level. And now somebody else can come in and take it that next step. So the big question is, who is going to be that next guy? I think you got a couple of maybe nonchalant options out there. Chris Jans from Mississippi State, he's an Iowa native. Like, he's done a good job there with a program that is kind of under-resourced as well in a few ways. But overall, like, I think this comes down to Darren DeVries and Ben McCollum. So Ben McCollum, the new coach at Drake this year, who they've had a really good year, and then Darren DeVries, the old coach at Drake, who I think this is either his first or second. This is his first season at West Virginia this year. Who should be the guy overall? I think it should be Darren DeVries. Like, and I'm not like I'm not against Ben McCollum. I want to make sure that's known. But I have a few reasons for why I think Darren DeVries is the better option. DeVries needs to be the number one target here for the Iowa Hawkeyes for a couple different reasons. Number one, he has Big 12 experience, which is not Big 10, but it is a major conference with major competition that he is competing against, not just on the court, but off the court with NIL and stuff like that as well. I think he is your best chance to keep Josh Dix and Owen Freeman. I think that he is going to come in and raise NIL for you. But that's also the issue, is that DeVries doesn't want to come in and have to raise all the NIL. Like, DeVries is going to have options at other places where he can be a good NIL raiser and raise the NIL from where it's at, but the NIL is just not at a super strong place at Iowa right now, at least for the men's basketball program. And so DeVries, I think, it sounds like, is cautious about the NIL opportunities there. And he's not exactly unhappy at West Virginia. So if Iowa is not able to convince him that the NIL opportunities have potential and that maybe they can scrounge up enough to convince him, I don't think DeVries goes to Iowa, but he knows how to NIL fundraise. He knows the area of Iowa as well. He was at Drake. Like, he knows these things. He would be your absolute best option there. So somebody in that administrative department is going to have to start trying to get enough NIL, maybe not raised right away, but at least promise to help Darren DeVries do what he needs to do over there. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink really fast. All right, sorry about that. John said no more FranCon memes. Yeah, that was a pretty epic board that I think it was Illinois made and had in their student section. John says, if McCollum had more experience in D1, I think Indiana would look to him. His winning pedigree can't be ignored. Yeah, I mean, I put out a meme today. It seems like everybody in the Big Ten, if they lose their coach, they just go for Ben McCollum, which, I mean, he's, a Midwest guy. Like, I get it. He's at Missouri Valley State, I think it was, and Drake, he's done an awesome job there. My other thing with McCollum, and I am not anti-Ben McCollum for Iowa. I think it would be a great hire if they do it. But I don't think Ben McCollum would pick up where Fran McCaffrey left off. And I think you need a coach like that. Maybe not need, but I think you would much prefer a coach like that, because they can take the momentum of what Fran McCaffrey had with his players and with everything else. I mean, maybe not so much the fan apathy and stuff, but he would be able to take that momentum with his players and turn it into something. McCollum, as we talked about it with Jason on a bracketology show recently, like, he runs a super slow style. He runs a very, Princeton kind of offensive style. You're going to go from the Fran McCaffrey running gun and get up and down the court and, fire away three-pointers to ball control and Princeton offense. Like, that doesn't seem like a good fit to go together. Good coaches are good coaches, right? Like, he would adjust, but it would be a huge adjustment not only for his play style, because I don't think that play style wins you a ton of games in the Big Ten. I think dudes are too athletic. I think coaches are too smart for you to win that kind of gimmicky way. And I'm not trying to call Ben McCollum a gimmick coach. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But that is kind of a gimmicky way to win in lower college basketball. Now, maybe Ben McCollum goes to the NCAA tournament and he goes to the Final Four, and I'm just proved completely wrong. Maybe, okay? But I think Ben McCollum is going to have to transition his play style when he gets to wherever he's going, the Big 12, the Big 10, Big East, whatever it is. Like, he's going to have to transition that. And that could take a year for that to happen, especially if he doesn't have the right guys in place for that. I look at a program like, and this is not, same thing, because it's not even the same sport, but we've talked about on the football show, Purdue hired Ryan Walters after having Jeff Brom. Like, how stupid a decision was that? You had a guy who was throw the ball over the field, like great quarterbacks, do all these things, and then you hired Ryan Walters, who basically had to completely restructure the entire team because he didn't have the right guys there to run the defense that he wanted to run and do all these things. Now, I'm not saying you bring guys in who run the exact same system, but enough of the same system to where you can build off the current guys that you have. My fear is if you bring in Ben McCollum, yes, bring Ben McCollum, bring some guys from Drake with him. That's awesome, but Drake has two of the three highest minutes played of any team in all of college basketball right now. We just talked about how exhausted Purdue is with TKR and Braden Smith. That's not going to work for you in the Big Ten. This Princeton offense is not going to work for you in the Big Ten. Ball control and stuff like that can work other places, but overall, like, you're not going to take Josh Dix and turn him into a ball control artist. You're not going to take Owen Freeman and turn him into, that whole system. Like, that's not going to work. And you're going to lose those guys if you bring Ben McCollum in my opinion. Now, maybe I'm proved wrong, but in my opinion, that's what it would be. So, again, not trying to disparage Ben McCollum. Ben McCollum would be a good hire if they made it. It just wouldn't be as good of a hire as Darren DeVries, in my mind. Those are my thoughts. All right. Let's get to the rumor. I teased him a little bit, and I've kind of mentioned him a few times on this show, so you guys will probably know it, but Chris Collins is rumored to be leaving Northwestern for Villanova. Chris Collins has been thought of leaving Northwestern the last couple years when his son graduates. His son just graduated. He was a team manager and he walked for senior day. So every indication is there that he's going to graduate, be done at Northwestern. And it seems like Chris Collins has kind of stuck it out there, but he's been frustrated with, it seems like from behind the scenes, he's not come out publicly and said this, but seems like he's been frustrated with the academia, the lack of resources, and kind of the perception that Northwestern has in the league. We saw a little bit of that at the Big Ten tournament when he was frustrated with like the no AC and stuff. He's had the quote of like, they're trying to get us or something. So definitely he seems frustrated with kind of where the Northwestern is in the pecking order of the Big Ten, but also like, that's the thing, like I make a Northwestern video on here, it gets 2 views, right? Because there's just not that many Northwestern fans that are that much diehards. Like, they go to the games, they're interested, but like, Northwestern is not going to bring you a bunch of diehard fans. And I've seen that. That's one of the reasons why I don't talk a ton of Northwestern hoops, because there's just not the fans that want to gobble that up. Now, as a Big Ten channel, I do talk Northwestern hoops, but just like, if I'm going to make a video, I'm more inclined to make a video about Illinois than Northwestern, because Illinois fans are crazy and they're going to watch the video. I'm going to get 5,000 views, right? I would love to be the type of channel that could just make a video about anybody, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And I'm not trying to come after Northwestern fans. Like, Northwestern fans are great. Some of the ones I've interacted with on Twitter and stuff, like, they're great. There's just not as many of them. And that's really, really hard. And I think that, well, maybe, I mean, we don't know for sure. That could be a part of the frustration for Chris Collins as well. The culture of the school and maybe not, investing in basketball as maybe another school like Villanova would. He's had his name whispered around a little bit for Indiana. I think Indiana wants to make a bigger splash than that. And unfortunately, even though Chris Collins is a really good coach and he's done some really good things at Northwestern, I think he would do a good job at Indiana. I think that if he was hired, you would have some fans there that are kind of like, really? Like, we're Indiana. We should have better than this. And like, I don't know, like maybe big name wise, sure. But like, again, I think Chris Collins would do a good job at Indiana. I don't see him doing it because I think Indiana wants to make a bigger splash than that. I know for a fact last year, Ohio State and Chris Collins talked when they were going through a little bit of their coaching search thing. Now, obviously, Ohio State eventually went with Jake Diebler, but I know that was at least, discussed there, and there was some speaking between those two. I really feel like, though, it was this offseason where it was going to happen because Chris Collins wanted to see it through, where his son graduated, was team manager, yada, 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 all that stuff. I mean, I have a ton of reasons here for why Chris Collins is an underrated coach. Like, I mean, if you don't believe me, just go read his bio on the Northwestern website. Big Ten Coach of the Year, 2023, 2022, 2023. He's the only coach in Northwestern history to take the team to an NCAA tournament. He took him back-to-back years in 2023 and 2024. His wins is third most by a Northwestern head coach. He's had top Big Ten finishes. He's second place in 2022, 2023, tied for third in 2023, 2024 in the Big Ten standings. I mean, he's upset top teams. Illinois this year, Indiana. He's upset Michigan State when they were 20th. Like, his player development, Boo Booey, Nick Martinelli, like Brooks Barnheiser, like his player development is so doggone good. His national recognition, he was named the 2023 Jim Fallon National Coach of the Year, and he was 2024 finalist and 2017 Naismith Coach of the Year finalist, not Big Ten Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year finalist. He's had historic seasons. Like, I go on and on and on about this guy with how much of an underrated coach he is. He didn't have the best season this year, but he also lost two of his top three scorers on the team. So it's unfortunate, but I see him doing a whole lot better at a school like Villanova. Now, here's the issue. Villanova has not fired their coach. So that's kind of one of the reasons why this is kind of a rumor and not getting that many legs yet. But when you think of Villanova, you think of Jay Wright, 1 seed, 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think they were that like 6 times or something like that in his career there. Well, Kyle Neptune, he's gone 0 for 3 for making the NCAA tournament. He's not going to make the NCAA tournament this year. He's 53 and 46 overall, 31 and 29 in the Big East. He's been a disappointment. He's had pedestrian numbers, and the program has much higher aspirations for what Kyle Neptune can, quite frankly, bring them to, or has brought them to so far. So if he gets fired, it feels like Chris Collins is going to be a done deal. Now, there is some misconception here, right? A lot of people are saying, well, Chris Collins is from Philly. Well, his dad played for the 76ers when he was born, but he still has much more connections to Chicago. So if you're looking for a reason on why this might be kind of fool's gold and he's just trying to leverage an extension or more money from Northwestern, that could be a part of it. But at the end of the day, I think the frustrations are too high for Chris Collins, that if he gets the chance to move on, I think he probably takes it. You never know. There is something about familiarity and where you're at, and Chris Collins maybe wanting to not jump to the Big East and instead jump somewhere in the Big Ten. But just to put it in perspective for you, like, Northwestern's entire roster this year, which had Nick Martinelli, Brooks Barnheiser, Ty Berry, Jalen Leach, like some really good players on it. 2 players for Villanova made more NIL money this year than the entire Northwestern roster. So if that gives you any idea of where these 2 programs are NIL wise, like, that's huge. Now, Villanova does not have the budget, the athletic budget that Northwestern has. So I do think that needs to be taken into account. But like, as long as NIL is still legal, which it should be in the new era of college basketball, like he won't have the revenue sharing of of a Northwestern, but he still might have better NIL that is going to get him in a better spot. Like I said, 2 players for Villanova had more NIL paid to them combined than the entire Northwestern team combined, like the entire team combined, not just like, oh, they had 2 players and everybody else on the team. No, combined, they had more. So I think it's interesting. The move makes sense to me, but ultimately I could also see Collins sticking in the Big Ten. It's a more prestigious conference. He's had some success at Northwestern. He has connections to Chicago. Maybe it happens. We'll see. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. So, all right. Let's look at the Big Ten tournament the rest of the way really fast. Then we'll get out of here. Michigan State, Wisconsin tomorrow. I believe that is at 1 o'clock. I need to check that for sure so I don't misinformation you guys. Saturday, 1 o'clock, CBS. So we won't get to hear Robbie Hummel and Stephen Bardo anymore, which that stinks. I like Robbie Hummel and Stephen Bardo's play-by-play and everything. So 1 o'clock there, and then around 3:30, I think it's like 25 minutes after the game ends, they do the next game, so probably around 3:30 for Michigan, Maryland. I'm really excited to see this Wisconsin matchup with Michigan State. Michigan State really held Wisconsin to shooting in the previous game, but like I said before, Wisconsin, they've kind of done a better job of adjusting and becoming a little bit of a different team. Not a different team, but just adjusting their, what they're doing and trying to accomplish out there. So I think Wisconsin's going to give Michigan State a really good game. I don't think it's going to be like any of these games. Today, every single game was won by 10 points or more. Don't think we're going to get that tomorrow. Maybe we do. But overall, like, Maryland is playing super well right now, but Michigan just showed us the adjustments they made. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Don't have any predictions for you yet because you know what? I'm really bad at predicting college basketball in March, and I haven't met anybody that is good at predicting it yet. So, when you find somebody that's good at predicting college basketball in March, let me know. I'd love to talk to them because it's really, really freaking hard to do. So, all right, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. Like I said, go check out CBB Analytics for $30 off your first purchase there. Use code HUDDLE, HUDDLE, at cbbanalytics.com. There are free tiers, so you can use the free tier there. But when you decide to go to the next tier, because you will, because it's a really good stat site, go ahead and use the code HUDDLE, HUDDLE, for $30 off. Really appreciate everybody listening, whether you listen live, listen on podcast. Probably going to be solo again tomorrow night, so we'll see how that goes. And then Burke will be with me on Sunday at 8 o'clock. So appreciate everybody. Have a good one.